Good evening. I am here with Tish. I think she likes it when we do the book study and she comes out and makes an appearance and spends some time with me. I think she knows that she's getting attention while she's at it. You know, she was in her room, in her kitty cave, everything was fine. And then, just when it's time to get ready, she came out. I've noticed she's been doing this all the time. So people that say that cats don't care, look at everybody, how pretty you are. She's got a little weepy eye. People that say that cats really don't care, they do. They're so smart. And she is so smart and happy to make her appearance tonight at the Rise of the False Gods book study. And tonight we are talking about religion and spirituality. Now, before we get to that, I just wanted to go back and reflect on yesterday's book, what we were studying, because one thing that didn't get said that I really wanted to talk about is that we are in a state of spiritual warfare. It's not what you think. It's not about guns and stuff like that. It is about light or enlightenment coming forward in a state of consciousness, of darkness of consciousness, with the consciousness being so immersed in the lower nature, in the human thinking and human emotions, that we will be stunted in our spiritual growth, because in order to grow spiritually, we want to rise above to our higher intuitive sensing. Now, some of you are probably already there. When you hear things that are absolutely outlandish and your wisdom center, your gut goes, this isn't right, that is a clue that you are awakened. And because you are awakened, that makes you a very powerful spiritual warrior. And so how do we get out of this? And what's happening is we seem to tend to be fighting against each other, which is not going to help. What is going to help is as we learn to cooperate, coordinate, and educate. The word is, if you are unknowing, if you are in the darkness, the illusions, the lies, the division, the rejection of the reality of our oneness, how do you get out of it? Well, you learn. And sometimes the way we learn is by pain. We talked about the cosmic 2x4, 4x8, 16x16, whatever, 8x16, whatever. So we learn through our experiences, or we don't. And if we don't learn, we continue to suffer. And if we do learn, we rise above it. So whatever's going on in the world, whatever you're hearing, whatever you're thinking, I invite you to rise above it, to keep remembering you are a spiritual being living in a human life. We also say a great affirmation, I am a spiritual being living in a spiritual realm guided by spiritual law. So even though the experiences may be down here, if we rise above it, we will not only be able to ride it out, we will become change makers in our world. So back to tonight, which is on religion and spirituality. Okay, you don't want to leave now, or you want to sit by me? Okay, I am on the category. It's about the first paragraph down on religion and spirituality in the book Rise of the False Gods. I'm going to read. It's common today to hear folks saying I'm spiritual, not religious. When I hear this, I wonder if they know the difference. Do you know the difference? Can you articulate it? Can you articulate it in a way that does not disrespect or diminish either spirituality or religion? You see, because they're both totally valid. And when people say I'm spiritual, not religious, it's usually like a backslap at religion. And it might be with good cause based on their personal experience of the past. That doesn't make it true, okay? It may make it their fact, their experience, but it doesn't make it true. The truth is we are both spiritual and religious. I'm going to give you the definitions. Religion is a formalized or institutionalized set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe or supreme being, or beings, containing a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. Governing the conduct of human affairs. So each one of us has the religion, which I call a framework, that we are spiritual beings and we express our spirituality through what we call religion, which is the flavor or the denomination or whatever we want to call it. Okay, spirituality is the true essence of every being, the spark of divinity that relates us to God, the Creator. It is our awareness of something greater than ourselves and our relationship to it. And all of creation, our relationship to it and all of creation. It is a quality of being dedicated to God, religion, or spiritual things or values as contrasted with material or temporal ones. So we value, like we value our home, we value our stuff, but we value something else higher, and that is our moral code. And I'm going to give it a quick poke. I know I've talked about it before, and you'll probably hear me talk about it again. But one of the saddest things in recent decades, in the past maybe 30, especially 30 years till now, is that churches are shrinking in sizes, and the people are saying I'm spiritual and religious, which doesn't really mean what they think it means. Because if you're spiritual, not religious, you're giving up half of your expression of spirituality. Why would you want to do that? But as people drift away from a formal expression, a framework of reference for their spirituality, it's not important anymore. What's important to us is what we give our time, our energy, and our money to. What are you giving your time, your energy, and your money to? Some people go out to dinner. It is totally possible for two people to go out to a dinner in a nice restaurant and spend over $100, which makes me gag when I think about how you could make it just as well at home. Not that I don't like to go out to eat, but I don't do it a whole lot just because I want it to stay special. We want things to stay special. So, but you could blow $100. And I, as a minister of a church, I have been very often responsible for being a part of the counting team, which would count the offering when it came in. Now, a minister would not help count the offering. I simply counted with the count team to assure that everything was on the up and up, because I was the minister of very small churches. And we didn't have a lot of people to say, do that. So we needed accountability. So I provided accountability. But it was very sad to see that people who had many high demands on the church would contribute very small amounts. And I'm not saying a judgment or a blame. Hear this. I'm not talking about judgment or blame. I'm talking about consciousness. And the consciousness, the error beliefs that people hold about the church is always asking for money. Well, the church is always asking for money because they got bills just like everybody else. And those bills are for your spiritual home and they need to be paid. And if you have a minister you want available at the tip of your fingers, day or night, if you want to be able to have someone preach on Sunday in a way that'll set you on fire and have experience and knowledge and the ability to answer your questions, that person needs to be taken care of. Take care of your pastors. Take care of your rabbis, your imams, whoever they are. Take care of them. Our spiritual nature expresses through the moral code written on our deepest parts. This is called our credo. The word credo means I believe. Farther back in the book, you will find a credo exercise. I'm trying to debate now whether we'll go through it together or whether I'll end the book there and let you go through it on your own. Somehow I think it's better to go through it together because it's always easier if you're with someone. Like going to the gym. Okay. The credo is the what. The religion is the how, or the manner in which we express our spirituality. Religion without spirituality would be like an empty house. Spirituality without religion is like a tumbleweed just blown hither and yon by the wind with no direction of its own. So we do want to progress spiritually, and with that we usually use our framework that is our religion or belief system. Many of the folks, I got to go back because I added notes to this, When I said religion without spirituality would be like an empty house, and I made a note on it, or prison. Because for some people, their religion, the religion of their, they were born into, their original religion, was very restrictive and run by human, rules that the people brought up and nothing about the real spiritual nature. A lot of times, if we understood the why of our religion, the what and the why, we would not have such a push against some of the things if we see our religion as something to bless us. Many of the folks who say they are spiritual, not religious, were required to attend or partake in a religion they didn't believe in at the core of their being, their inner knowing. When they became adolescents and could make their own choices, they would either rebel and say they are atheists, declaring all religion is a lie, or they would choose spirituality over religion, even if that they didn't know what that meant. All they knew is if they were spiritual, not religious, they were not required to show up at church or donate to church. Many other people, attend the church of their parents, adhering to the rules and rites and rituals that they were raised with. They are very comforting. They're even more comforting when you know what they're about, when you know what you're really celebrating. This is a missed opportunity because spirit is not being fed and reaching spiritual maturity would be compromised. Another common reason those who have drifted away from church say that they are spiritual rather than religious. The reason they say that is because it's easier than getting out of bed, exercising self-discipline, or asking hard questions. That's what Scott Peck called laziness and narcissism. Now, about asking hard questions, that's a real challenging one, because a lot of us were brought up in churches that said, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Well, we have questions. When my first child was born, he was about 2 months old, and my grandfather died, and that was the first person in my family, my immediate family, to die, and I didn't know how to act, and I was torn between the euphoria of this beautiful child I was given and the terror of death, and it started to really trouble me. And so I went to the church to talk to the priest about it. I had had a bad, one of those just as you're falling asleep dreams, and it was, I dreamt that I was dying. I died, and that terrified me. So I went to talk to the priest, and you know what he said to me? Are you ready to die? Yeah, a young woman, 23 years old, with a beautiful new baby. And I think what happened was, amongst other things, that postpartum depression or whatever struck me. It was horrible. And I stayed in that church for a while, but that was not the answer I needed to hear. I think that particular priest probably did not do well in his pastoral counseling. So I don't even want to think about that anymore. And Cheryl said, although many people do work on Sundays now, unlike when we had the blue laws. That is true. And yet I also think that when we are really committed and we can say to our employer, I don't know if it's a law or not, but I need to be off fill in the blank time to go to church. Because I do believe we should be allowed to have our time to worship. Of course, when you're a minister, you get to go to church every week without question. As a matter of fact, you better show up. But when I stopped, I retired from my church and was working. I asked for, to my schedule should be so I could be off Sundays. Actually, that's when I had the church and I had my job, and I said I couldn't work Sundays because I go to church and I'm the minister. So I always made sure I had Sundays off. Now, for 6.5 months, I work Sundays at the campground, but then I'm off 5 months. But even when I work on Sundays, I do my prayer time in the morning. The prayer time is that's what you do. There's no exceptions to that rule in some way. Sometimes I vary, okay, and Cheryl has added, but when we had Wednesday service in the evenings, everyone had excuses then too. Ain't that the truth? We all want change. We all want the world to be a better place. We just don't want to do what you got to do to make it happen. But the good news is we can. When we get tired enough, when we hurt enough, we will turn. Unfortunately, turning to God is usually the last turn we've made, When all else fails, pray. It should be the other way around. Pray. Then you'll be ready when all else fails. Okay. Where did I leave off? Okay, here we go. It's easier, so laziness and narcissism, and not saying you're spiritual, not religious is easier than examining our own behavior, exercising self-discipline, or asking hard questions. Those who have been fortunate enough, as I have, found the perfect fit of a religion that aligns with their inner belief system or credo. If you are not sure of your spiritual path, I invite you to do the credo exercise in the book. You don't want to do it now? Hang on, in a couple of months we'll be there and we'll do it together in a video. Whether it's a church, temple, or mosque, if it feeds our soul and brings us closer to God, it is our perfect place of worship. The mode is not as important as the match. God doesn't care where we go, only that we go. I like to share how I found my path. I'm going to do a little reading and a little ad-libbing. Realizing I didn't agree with some of the teachings of my religion of origin, I stopped going to church. Now, I had been pretty devout. I, at one point in my time, wanted to be a nun. I'm sure there are those of you that would say, yeah, I don't think God wanted that either. There's a very spiritual story I had about how I had planned to go down and talk to the priest about entering a convent when I was a senior in high school. And that night there was a snowstorm, so I couldn't go. And I had a dream that I was a mother. And that dream was so powerful and so real, I knew I wanted to be a mother. So I continued to go to the church regularly. I married someone who was not into church. Brilliant. And we would go on holidays and stuff like that. Other than that, I'd go alone. My kids, at one point, my boys were altar servers. And I can't remember if I don't think my daughter was an altar server. But that was it was decades ago. But they would have a week where they had to serve 7 o'clock Mass. And I will tell you something about my boys. Every time it was their turn to do the Sunday mornings, they were there. I had to bring them, so I had to drag myself out of bed. And sometimes I would be the one grumbling. They got up, they went to church, they did they did their service, and then we came home. And to this day, I am still thrilled and amazed about that. They don't go to church anymore, but you can't make someone else want to do anything. You can only hope that the foundation you gave them will take them into their lives. And back to church maybe one day. If they can find the church that speaks to their soul. So after 40 years of regular church attendance, I have been going to a little Hispanic Catholic church. And the priest would give a hellfire and damnation talk every Sunday. And I liked the church. And I liked the people. And they had a really cute, this was in California, they had a really cute Christmas service one time where the kids had little towels on for the burqas on their head, and they had, I think that's what they're called. And Mary rode in on the back of a real donkey into the church. It's a very small congregation, maybe 40, 50 people, but it was so precious. And they had great breakfast after church. So it had everything but the teaching that and it just got to be too much for me one day, and I just stopped going. So that was like, after 45 or so years, this was monumental that I just said, I can't go to church. Then I was guided to Unity. I was guided on, and if I've already told this story, I apologize, but for anyone who hasn't heard it, it's a good story. So I had gone one time to a psychic fair, and I was just chatting with someone about how I wasn't happy. I couldn't find my right church, and she said, well, you sound to me like you would belong in a Unity church or religious science. So I went, Now you have to understand, I was fearful to break from the tradition. We were told Catholic Church is it. You leave the Catholic Church, you go to hell. And I sure didn't want that. So I went to the newspaper and I took out the advertisements for Unity and religious science from the newspaper. I cut them out and I put them on the refrigerator. And one day I said, okay, it's time to go back to church. And I looked at the service times. Both services were at 11 o'clock. And I knew where Iowa Avenue was, so I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So I got myself up, I got myself dressed, and I thought it would be way farther down the road than it was, but right across the other side of the freeway, I had to go up and around. There was the Unity Church. But it was a little tiny A-frame. Unity Christ Church of Riverside, California. And I looked at it and I said, I don't think I'm going in there. I'm used to the Catholic Church. Big, fancy, schmancy, holy, holy. So I drove past. And the minute I drove past, I figured, well, I go to the religious science church and see how that was. But Spirit kept saying to me, turn around, turn around, turn. You're going to be too late. If you don't turn around, you're going to be late anyway. Go back to that other church. So I turned around and I grudgingly went back to the other church. I parked in front. I didn't see any cars. I didn't know there was another parking lot in back. I walked in the door. I looked around. There was a little bookstore. My soul, just the whole, it was the essence. It was the essence of the church. And my spirit said, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home. Just like that. I knew I was home. And then when I saw the bookstore and I was so excited because all the books were things I already was interested in and believe in. And, they were like there in my soul from the beginning of my time, I guess. Time on this round I am on the planet. The bulletin spoke to me. The pastor came in and almost knocked my socks off. She had bleached blonde hair, teased up and poofy. She had a satiny kind of electric blue dress on and dangly big blue stone earrings with outlined and rhinestones. And that was quite shocking. And by the time she was done preaching, I knew I would found my place. Oh, and the fragrance of coffee didn't hurt. It was so amazing, and that day changed my life. That was in August, and in 3 months later, in November, I got, this is November, so that's that many years ago. That was about 1987. I got my call to ministry. And that's another story I'll tell you another time. Spirit actually spoke to me, Unity minister, which I thought, oh dear God, wait till my Catholic family hears this one after all the other little things I'd done. But that was my spiritual home, and it's been my spiritual home to this day, to the point that I gave my life to it. Thank you for a happy anniversary, Cheryl. I freely gave myself to Unity. I have to God through Unity. Let me make myself perfectly clear. I gave myself to God through the Unity teaching. It spoke to my soul. It speaks to my soul today. It doesn't negate any other of the world religions, what it does is it clarifies them. It helped me with the metaphysical understanding. I could get how and why. I could see we are more alike than we are different. Folks, we need to get this. We are more alike than we are different. And that applies to political parties, and we must not allow ourselves to be driven apart anymore. We need unity. I'm not converting you to Unity Church. Do not get me wrong. But we do need to live and express our oneness. To this day, right now, I feel weak in the knees when I recall finding my religious spiritual path in unity. Everything I heard suddenly made sense. I'd listen and I'd say, that's true. Not because anyone told me it was true, but because I felt it in my soul. What I learned did not invalidate, but harmonized the other religious teachings, the other denominations, the other faith communities. It was oneness in diversity. That's what we are, my friends. We are oneness in diversity. Please get that. Please get that. One God, many paths. Pick a path. Pick a path. If it's not your path, fine, go someplace else. But let that path lead you to your spiritual home. I could now see how much more alike we are than different. We're going to continue that tomorrow. I'm hoping we got a ways to go on it. I hope we can finish it. If not, we'll stretch it out another day. And when we're done with that, sorry, not tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday. Saturday and Sunday. I do my church here online, and you can do whatever you want. 2 days to relax, renew, refresh, and chew on the group study we had during the week. Eventually, next, after we finish this chapter, which will be a day or two, we're going to be looking at evil as a contagious disease. That's going to be fun. But we have to finish our religion and spirituality first. So glad you're here. Remember, you can go to YouTube and pick up any videos that you missed, and let's walk this path together. Thank you, and God bless you, and I will see you on Monday. Good night.